Today we're talking about the mechanics of energy harvesting. I hope y'all are having a good weekend so far. And yeah, we're going to just hop right into it. I'm going to first talk about what energy harvesting is. I'm also going to talk about, let's see, how many things? I have notes, y'all. I'm going to talk about 5 mechanics of energy harvesting. There's probably more than I could go into, but this is kind of a primer. Okay, just to give y'all a little taste. So I don't really do lives and stuff as much on Instagram anymore, but y'all can always join me on YouTube and even TikTok, where I'm a little bit more active there. And my YouTube is at thegoddesskeys, and my TikTok is heather.amunet.archer. Okay, and I'll be doing more lives and all of that jazz. I'm also putting my Cash App in. My Cash App is at thegoddesskeys. If you find value in this conversation and you want to, show a little love in the monetary way, then there is that. Okay, let's see. Align 432 says, hello, lovely. Just discovered you yesterday while searching on the Grand Central Sun. Woohoo! Yes, I've been intentionally tagging the Grand Central Sun because I just automatically feel that anybody who is searching that, your fam, your kin, so I'm kind of pulling in my soul tribe right now. And I know that folks who are gravitating towards information about the Great Central Sun are a part of my soul tribe. So thank you. I'm so glad you found me. I resonate very much with what you had to share, sister. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I see that there's a request to be. Thank you, Fun Afraid. Thank you. I'm called to speak. I'm called to share at this time, and this is just for anybody who has something to say and you haven't started your platform yet. Get on that, y'all. We really need alternative perspectives. I was debating on what platform to share this conversation on, but I think Instagram really needs this conversation right now. I'm not really seeing anything on energy harvesting as much on Instagram. When I do my little tags, it's quiet. I don't see no tags on Etheric Implants, and we're gonna talk about that too. So Instagram needs a little extra alternative love. So if you have something to say, consider sharing it on the platforms that are it's a little less popular to talk about that stuff, right? Because the more of us that get on here and share alternative perspectives, the more interest it happens. Sometimes the cool kids just need a nudge. They need the unpopular table to come in and give some information, and then they'll get on it too, and then it'll become part of popular culture. Okay. So yes. Yes, she said you were the one and only video that showed up. Powerful intentions, beautiful magic. Happy to be here. Yes. It's lonely in the beginning, but folks, the tribe will grow. The tribe will grow. Okay, the mechanics of energy harvesting. First and foremost, what is it? What is energy harvesting? Okay, energy harvesting is basically when you forget that you are connected to source and you feel like you need to get energy somewhere outside of yourself. Okay, so when you really think about it, we all kind of do energy harvesting on some level, so the stuff that is coming out about energy harvesting, and I'm guilty of this too. A lot of times it's kind of they're energy harvesting off of me, they're evil, they're vampires, all that kind of stuff. I've been there. But as you dig deeper and as you really start doing the shadow work that's really necessary to do during this process, you start realizing the ways in which you've been trained to energy harvest. Because you've been trained to think that you are not powerful, that your powerful lies outside of yourself, that you can buy your power, that you can leverage your power by who you're next to, who you're with, et cetera, who you're associated with. These are all parts of energy harvesting. So the first thing that I want to say when discussing energy harvesting is that we're all guilty of it on some level. This is a part of our programming within the false matrix, has been to energy harvest off of people and different beings and all that kind of stuff. We've done that through the system of capitalism. We've done that through thinking that we kind of have to climb on top of other people in order to get ahead. Energy harvesting is inherent within our system. Okay, so it's not like, the bad people over there are doing it. Now, that being said, there are some beings who are a little bit more entrenched in the system of energy harvesting, I would say. And we'll get into that a little bit. But I just wanted to share the general definition of energy harvesting as I see it. Okay, so the first thing is, if you are feeling like you're being energy harvested off of, if you're around different groups of people and you feel worse about yourself than when you started, before you were in their presence, and you feel like you're being drained and all that kind of stuff, that is a sign that you are being energy harvested off of. But then at the same time, it is, as we ascend, we want to do the shadow work to make sure that we are seeing where we maybe we have energy harvested off of others. And I'll explain that through the first way energy harvesting shows up, which a lot of us have to unlearn, or are unlearning probably right now, which is codependency, being codependent. All right, we can be codependent on relationships. We can be codependent on substances. We can be codependent. I don't know why. There's some kids screaming outside, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't know if y'all hear that, but I don't know what's going on. Someone's having a meltdown. Someone needs some support. So sending in some good energy. But yeah, being codependent. Codependency is a way, see in your life where you are codependent. Okay, where in your life do you feel like you need something or someone to survive or to go throughout your day? That is where you're being energy harvested off of. I'm going to give you a couple examples. Number one, substances, right? Drugs, alcohol, sugar, these kinds of things. If you feel like you need these things to survive, there's a parasitic relationship that's going on with these things, okay? There's a reason why people who are really unhappy in their lives, they feel like they need to depend on certain substances to get through the day. And that's because they're at such a low vibration with their energy. And let me say, I'm not pointing no fingers at anyone, because, and I was sharing this on my TikTok earlier today, and we were talking about the things that you need to let go on your ascension path. And one of the things that I shared regarding my personal story was how I needed to let go of my cannabis dependency. And I had a dependency on cannabis and wine. And there was a certain time in my life where I felt like if I didn't have those things, then life was boring, or I wouldn't be able to get through my work. A lot of times we have certain dependencies, and we don't talk about this enough. A lot of y'all know I talk a lot about grind culture and toxic productivity, but what we don't talk about is the way this intersects with other addictions. How I've been in a lot of spaces where quote unquote high achieving individuals have utilized drugs and alcohol as a way to network with each other and as a way to stay on top of their work. Okay, so I've been around circles. I've been around for a little bit. And I will say, some of the folks I have noticed that have normalized addiction, they tend to be academics. They tend to be highly educated individuals, and they tend to be people who have top positions and stuff. And a lot of times they are dealing with the stress of a toxic work environment or of really high expectations, things that are expected of them in the workplace. They are dealing with that and coping with that through addiction. Okay, so we just got to get out ahead of that. And a lot of times addiction is pinned as being something that losers do, people who are underachieving. And I have not found that to be true. When I have been the most immersed in toxic productivity and grind culture, that's when I've had the biggest issues around addiction and that sort of thing. So that is a form of codependency, okay? And basically what was happening with me in that particular time is I was having my energy siphoned not only by the system of grind culture, not only by a toxic work environment, but also through the drugs and the alcohol that I was ingesting constantly, okay? And it became this vicious cycle of energy harvesting, all right? And it keeps you, for anybody who has suffered from addiction before, you might be able to relate to this, but if you've suffered from addiction before, maybe you have noticed that when you're in addiction, you don't really see any hope outside of it. You think like you need that as a crutch, and that you're always going to need that, and so that is you being on a trauma loop, okay? And the truth of the matter is that our work environments, our toxic work environments, even though they don't say that they condone it, they secretly do condone us being codependent on our work environments, codependent on certain substances in order to get ahead, and it creates this vicious cycle of energy harvesting. So that is one example of how codependency can work and fuel energy harvesting, okay? Now, another example is we're going to take it to relationships. We're going to take it to, let's talk about romantic relationships for a second. You can be in a codependent relationship with your partner, all right? Abuse is a really funny, nebulous thing. We're taught to see abuse as something that's very physical, something that you can see in the physical. Are there bruises? Did they hit you? That kind of thing. But abuse, anybody who's been in an emotionally abusive relationship or a psychologically abusive relationship or a financially abusive relationship knows that the patterns of abuse are a lot more nebulous than that, okay? And a lot of times what's happening is you are in this form of codependence where you feel like you can't live without this person. You can't see your life without this person. And when you are engaged in relationship from a state of codependency, what can sometimes happen is that you can be energy harvested off of. This is why we're seeing so much talk right now around narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, gaslighting. I mentioned this sometime last year. In 2022, gaslighting was the most searched word on the internet. Okay, that shows that people are waking up from the spell of energy harvesting that this false matrix has been running off of. Okay, so people are starting to see that something is off, right? And a lot of times energy harvesting can play out in with the people we love the most, okay? And a lot of times it's accepted because we were taught that to truly love someone or something, that we had to put them before ourselves, even if it meant our health and well-being, and that's not what real love is. That's not love. Love, how can you, it's like that RuPaul saying, how he goes, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love someone else, And you don't throw yourself under the bus time and time again if you're acting out of a place of self-love, okay? So the same thing when it comes to drug and alcohol addiction and that sort of thing. Like each time you engage in that, it's a form of you throwing yourself under the bus, right? Even though you're doing it just to get through the day, right? Just to get through the week. But it is a form of self-sacrifice. And that's the thing about grind culture and the false matrix. It is a system that has been built upon sacrifice, sacrificing the needs of our minds, our bodies, in order to produce, okay? And we have done it at all costs, and we are collectively waking up from the spell of this, and we're realizing that we can only do this for so long, right? Because you get to this point where, if anybody has experienced toxic overwork and overwhelm, you get to the point where you realize if you don't set the boundary, then no one else is going to set the boundary for you, okay? And so knowing that when you wake up from the spell of grind culture and toxic productivity, you're waking up from a system of energy harvesting. And what you're going to notice is as you start seeking life outside of certain codependent relationships and dynamics, you're going to notice a really interesting dynamic. You're going to notice that the certain people who get the most upset with you for choosing to navigate different boundaries, for choosing to choose you, there's going to be some people who get really pissed off at you. They're going to make it sound like you are the bad person, that you're the boogeyman, right? And that's when you know those are the people that have been energy harvesting off of you. Those are the people that would have preferred that you throw yourself under the bus for their own benefit. Whether it's your toxic boss, whether it's a toxic friend group, whether it's a toxic relationship, etc., etc. Okay? And so that's the first thing that I wanted to share. Hey, Clementine, that's the first thing I wanted to share about energy harvesting, is that it's related to codependency. Codependency has been disguised as love. Codependency is not love. It's actually a form of self-rejection and a form of self-hatred sometimes. You know, if we think about the capitalistic consumerist culture that we live in, think about all the time you get ads thrown in your face telling you how you need to improve yourself or improve your life, or how there's these like really subtle images that happen within the media to show you that your life isn't as good as this person's life that you're seeing, you know, whether you're watching a particular reel or whether you're watching a movie or a show. And a lot of times, like, it's to program you to think less of yourself, okay? That's a form of energy harvesting. Now, I want to talk about the second thing around energy harvesting. Energy harvesting is rooted in angles. Okay, what do I mean when I say this? Okay, so one of the folks who hopped on here earlier mentioned something called the Great Central Sun, and I need to talk about that for a second. So I don't know if y'all have heard about the northern lights that were showing yesterday in like different, I think like they were showing in Michigan or something like that, like in very odd places where you don't normally see northern lights, and they were reaching different places. That is the Great Central Sun showing up and showing out. You're starting to hear more talk related to solar flares. You're starting to hear more talk around the sun just flaring up and showing up and doing, so Michael says they're all over the Midwest. Yeah, so that is the Great Central Sun. That is not the sun that we are used to seeing in the sky. That's coming, actually, a lot of folks say that the Great Central Sun is coming from below us, okay? The rays of the aurora. So this is, these rays are magnetic, okay? Right now, humanity, we're known as being electromagnetic beings, meaning that we're part electricity and we're part magnetic. But we're going to start seeing the rays of the Great Central Sun start to bathe the earth more and more. And it's going to cause a lot of weird stuff to happen. It's going to cause a lot of natural disasters. It's also going to cause people to get really tired, because what it's going to cause to happen is a molecular shift within our biology. And as this molecular shift within our biology happens, we're going to need to rest more. If we don't rest more, what's going to happen is you're going to see, which we're already kind of seeing now, we're going to start seeing a raise in mental health issues, physical health issues. People are not going to be able to grind it out the way that we have been trained to within our society. It's because of the Great Central Sun. It's literally changing us at a structural DNA level, okay? There are certain beings who are not going to fully be able to handle the magnetism of the Great Central Sun, okay? And so it's going to cause a lot more, mortality, okay? Now, how do we prepare for this? We shift our lifestyle. Number one, we need to really commit to a lifestyle shift where we prioritize health and wellness before productivity so we can survive, actually. This isn't just, oh, health and wellness is nice and I want to rest. Yes, that's true. That's already valid. And also, when you are shifting your lifestyle, it's a form of self-preservation so that you're not throwing yourself under the bus, right? To basically be composted, all right? Yes, so Angie says, yes, I'm concerned of our physical symptoms from the shift. Yes, and it's only going to continue. And so this is why we're starting to see the rumblings around workers' rights, why we're seeing the rumblings around workplace wellness, why we're seeing the rumblings around the 4-day work week, et cetera, because we're going to start getting so tired from these different sun rays, like it's going to mess with our minds, and we're just going to need more time to rest and integrate. That's because more magnetism is coming onto the earth. The earth is raising in its magnetic field. And the more electricity that you have running in your body, the harder it's going to be to adjust to the rays of the great central sun. Okay, so that is what's happening in a nutshell. And what I want you to think of is, I want you to think of electricity as straight lines. And I want you to think of magnetism as circles and spirals. Okay, so when I said that one of the mechanics of energy harvesting is angles. Okay, so angles are are made out of straight lines. Okay, so when we think about angles, we think about triangles, we think about boxes, we think about rectangles. And there's no accident that, for example, pyramids are very hierarchical in nature. Boxes are very confining in nature. Okay, this is related to more of an electrical way of living. Way back in the day, we didn't used to live in square houses. Even before the times of the pyramids, there were no, you notice like the pyramids came up at a certain time during ancient civilizations, but there's nothing to say that pyramids were always there in the inception of human history. There's an ancient civilization by the name of Lemuria. A lot of people, you're not going to hear about Lemuria in your history books per se, but it did exist. And it was a time in which humanity was way more in communion with the earth, and they adopted a magnetic frequency. They were living within a magnetic frequency. And many falls in human consciousness have happened to replace our magnetism with electricity. And this is where the angles come in. So a lot of times, if you're a spiritual seeker and you're starting to Google spiritual stuff, a lot of times you're going to see stuff like the Merkaba, or you're going to see stuff like the Sri Yantra. And a lot of these things have lots of angles. And, they tell us that these are the spiritual things that we kind of need to adopt, or this is the sacred geometry that we need to adopt. Even the pyramids, I'm going to be going way more in depth on this, I think, on YouTube probably, but the pyramids were really used to energy harvest. They were used to energy harvest off of the earth, to harness energy from the ley lines off of the earth for the pharaohs, okay? Very hierarchical structures. You notice how the pharaohs were buried within the pyramids and that sort of stuff. They were trying to use it as like a form of like spaceship transportation kind of thing to the afterlife, which actually didn't work, but that's a whole other story. It was a form of energy harvesting. So angles, even when we think of linear time is made out of a line. All of this stuff is based upon energy harvesting, okay? So even the way that we perceive time as being linear, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? That's one way to look at reality, but that is far from being the only way to look at reality. And more research is coming out which says that time in itself is an illusion, that there is only now. So that means if time is an illusion and there's only now, then it may be very likely that this linear timeline that we've been on is not real. And if it's not real, why are we on it? And who does it serve? Okay, so these are just some things to think about, all right? I'm just going to brush the surface today. I'm getting you to just become curious about this. Start looking at things that are made up of angles in your life, okay? And think about what they represent, okay? Think about what a pyramid represents, think about like pyramid scheme. Think about what boxes represent, getting out of the box, thinking outside of the box, those kinds of things. The great central sun is going to force us to get into more of a circular or spiral way of thinking. We're going to start seeing that we're living from a spiral, okay? If we're multidimensional beings, there is no beginning, middle, and end, okay? The time is now. If we, we're going to start noticing that the architecture of things are going to start shifting. You're going to start seeing more rounded edges. This is the sign of the great central sun coming into play, okay? And so the mechanics of energy harvesting is rooted in angles. So the Merkaba is definitely, has been something that's been utilized in energy harvesting, even though we've been taught that this is more of a spiritual thing. They say that the Merkaba represents time travel, or being able to Yeah, to interdimensionally travel. Yeah, it is for some people. Some people have been utilizing the geometry of the Merkaba and energy harvesting off of others to multidimensionally travel to places that they would not be able to otherwise. Okay. I'm going to be a little cryptic about that. I'm going to share more information about that at a later time. I'm just here to spark your interest right now. Okay. So just start looking at the Merkaba, start seeing what people say about it. The Merkaba is very much rooted upon time. Okay. So, and time is a form of energy harvesting. So just think about that. Okay. What's another mechanic of energy harvesting? So first of all, let me just repeat what I've shared so far for folks who are just coming in. Okay, energy harvesting is rooted upon codependency. Okay, our lands one says will do. Yes, will do. This is I guess what is it? I'm inviting you to go down the rabbit hole. I'm not going to take you fully into the rabbit hole today, but I'm just going to give you some questions to ask as you explore your own portal and go down that journey. So you got codependency, that's rooted in energy harvesting. Angles is rooted in energy harvesting. Anything that's sharp with sharp edges, okay, or lines, that's going to be rooted in the mechanics of energy harvesting. Etheric implants. So some of y'all have been seeing me post about etheric implants on Instagram. It's real quiet out here. I'm like one of the only people posting on it. So if anyone else knows anything or wants to share some stuff online, you guys should do it because it's lonely in these streets. But we're going to start hearing more and more about it. So I recently posted something where it says that Congress is passing a new law that's basically protecting humanity's brain waves. Because I know y'all have seen that whole thing where you'll be thinking something and then that thing that you thought that you didn't tell anyone else about shows up on your phone. Like magic, like, oh, what a coincidence. Like the first time it happens, you're like, oh, that's weird. Oh, but it can't be. And then the next time it happens, you're like, oh no, And funny story, I was at my cousin's house a few months back. I don't know if she's going to jump on the live, but I'm going to basically expose myself. But we have different styles, and she had this like skate brand. She had this skate brand hoodie, and she was out and about, and I was like, I'm gonna wear her hoodie. Never seen this brand in my life, never talked about it or anything. So I'm wearing her hoodie. And I'm just scrolling on my phone, and then I take the hoodie off, and then later on, like literally a couple hours later, I'm on not YouTube, I'm on Facebook, and ads for the exact same hoodie that I was wearing came onto my YouTube feed. And I was like, oh hell no, they're like literally, this phone is literally tracking everything I'm doing, So, and I know y'all have experiences like that. Our Land One says, energy is real and you own your energy, your power. Ashe, yes. So I know y'all have all had like weird experiences where you're like, how sentient is my phone? How much is my phone keeping track of this sort of stuff? Is my phone reading my thoughts? It started off as a weird paranoid thought, but it's becoming more and more of a like, no, this is really happening. These boundaries are really being crossed. And now we have Congress coming out with legislation protecting our brainwaves. This is an example of what they call etheric technology. We can't see the technology working on our brain waves, but it doesn't mean that it's there. So in order for us to accept this phenomenon, it's understanding or overstanding that we are more than the physical bodies. So for me, for example, I am talking to you and you're seeing my lips move and all that stuff, and I have a physical body, right, that you're viewing right now. But I actually have 4 other bodies that are working in tandem right now. I have a mental body, I have an emotional body, I have a creative body, I have an etheric body, and I have a dreamtime body. Okay, so I have like 5 bodies, even though you can only see 1. All right. Now, a lot of people, if you go out in the streets and you tell people I have 5 bodies, they're gonna be like, okay, and some people are gonna be like, are you okay? So because we've been trained in our society to only trust the things that we can see, the things we can taste, the things we can touch, and the things we can feel, right? And if it's outside of that, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, basically, okay? But now we're starting to sense, so somebody just, Arland1 just said, energy is real. Energy is real, but you can't see my energy right now, but it's something you can intuit, right? It's something you can feel. And so as the magnetic rays from this great central sun start to flood our planet more and more, it's going to impact us on a physical level, but it is impacting us on an energetic level as well. And it's going to start breaking through these veils of illusion of just our five senses. And a lot of us are starting to wake up into our intuition, our intuitive gifts, okay? No, you're not crazy. No, you're not paranoid. A lot of these people we've called conspiracy theorists. It's harder to call them conspiracy theorists these days. I'm not saying all conspiracy theories are true, but a lot of them are starting to hold a lot more weight than they were say 5 years ago. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, just buckle up because it's going to be a bumpy ride in the times to come. But with that being said, the way that you energetically protect yourself from energy harvesting is to start reading the energy of people. Not just what people are telling you, but how do they make you feel, right? They could smile in your face and give you a compliment, but then, I know y'all may have had this experience where you're with somebody and they didn't say anything bad to you, but literally when they leave the room, you feel so drained. You might even feel like you need to lay down, or you feel weird about yourself. You may even feel like something was taken from you, but you don't know exactly what that is. That's a form of energy harvesting. And, the reality of the situation is some people are running different types of grid work in their fields. Some people are a little bit more electrical than they are magnetic. Some people are running a little bit more angles and boxes in their fields than others. And that impacts how you feel around certain people. And I know this goes against everything we've been taught, right? That we're all created equal, we're all united under humanity. And yes, that's true to a certain extent, but we also have to take into account an extraterrestrial history on our planet. Something that a lot of times has sounded like a conspiracy theory, but now we're starting to see these weird ET sightings, or these weird unidentified object sightings, and it's starting to become less conspiracy theory and so we have to think yeah, we're all in these flesh suits, sure, but are we all from the same bloodlines? This is just something to start asking, and a lot of times people who have asked these questions, they usually just go to their UFO conferences or watch Ancient Aliens. And you know how crazy they make the people on Ancient Aliens look, right? That's all done by design too, so you don't take that seriously. One thing that the False Matrix does really well is they actually tell you the truth, but they tell you the truth as a form of entertainment, so you don't take it seriously. There's this thing around universal law, which basically says you do need to tell, whatever you're doing to somebody, you have to tell them by universal law, you have to tell them that you're doing it to them. So they have to fulfill universal law. But what happens is they will put it in movies. They'll put it in ways that are ha, 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 funny. I'm not serious. This is just a joke. This is just a cartoon. But it's actually the truth, but you don't see it as the truth. You're laughing. You see it as entertainment, and they have washed their hands. They're okay, look, I did it. I fulfilled universal law. I told them exactly what's going on. And, but it's their choice to decide to believe it or not, And then meanwhile, stuff on the news a lot of times is not rooted in fact, it's very much manipulated. So we live in this weird inverted society. And once you start extricating yourself from the field around energy harvesting, you start to see that, okay? And so, an exercise for y'all to do, take one of your favorite movies, anyone, pick literally anyone. Because think about it, Hollywood means magic wand. It literally means magic wand. Hollywood, okay, magic wand, okay? You can take any one of your favorite Hollywood movies, and here's just an exercise for you to do. watch it like it's real, and just what are they telling you? Okay, just watch it like it's real. I know y'all have seen those things around The Simpsons. You know how they say like The Simpsons predicts all these things that happen. How do they keep doing that? That's an example. You'll find a lot of the stuff. Also, another a cartoon that talks a lot about stuff that's happening from an extraterrestrial standpoint. If you watch that show on Cartoon Network, I think it's called Rick and Morty. There's a lot of stuff in there, you know, but you don't see it, you know, like I watched that a long time ago before I woke up, and I didn't see it. But then when I like started learning and seeing things beneath the surface and I rewatched it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like they put so much in there. So yeah, you have to kind of start having the eyes of a child, you know, and see things from a different perspective to get at the root of a lot of this energy harvesting stuff. And so with that, I went on a little tangent. I'm going to go back to etheric implants. Okay. So with that being said, no, you can't see etheric implants. I can't show you where my etheric implants are. And that's the other thing is, I've done a lot of work around removing etheric implants, but there's so many of them, unfortunately. And a lot of times they're rooted into like certain ancient soul contracts and that sort of thing. I do a lot around clearing my etheric field, but I can't even say I'm fully etheric implant free. That would be a lie. And I don't know if anybody on this planet is at this time. But what I am doing is as I continue to wake up to my multidimensional gifts and stuff, I'm able to do that because I'm removing layers of programming, layers of electrical programming. A lot of this stuff is going to take time. Humanity has really fallen in consciousness. A long time ago, we used to be at like 25th dimensional consciousness. This was a very, very long time ago. A lot of people in the ascension community are talking about us getting to 5D. That's great. You know, we're at 3D now, but can you imagine how much knowledge has been lost from the 25th dimension since to 3D now? And the last time our Earth was immersed within the great central sun was when we were at the 25th dimension. And we have been detached. That the great central sun was actually our original sun. But a lot of messed up stuff happened throughout multidimensional history to get us off kilter to that. But now things are starting to come back into alignment. We're going to start becoming more magnetic, and we're going to need to drop a lot of the electrical programming if we're going to survive this cycle. Okay. So you're going to start hearing more stuff talking about like artificial intelligence, you know, cloning, that kind of stuff. Like that's just going to become more of a thing. And being able to see beneath the surface of what your five senses tell you is going to be a must for you to reclaim your energy, and also to just have discernment. Don't listen to what people tell you. How do they make you feel? You know, how do you feel when you're in a room with them? That's going to tell you, okay? And then you're going to start, I want you to think about the angles that I was talking about earlier, and how some people operate more from an electrical standpoint than others, okay? And you're going to start seeing that, you know, while you're out and about. Sometimes some of y'all may have noticed that like people, like the lights are on with some people, but it doesn't really feel like anyone's home, you know? And a lot of that is because some people are just running more electrical templates, you know? But the people who run more electrical templates are a lot more savvy at energy harvesting because they're more disconnected to source. So it's just something to keep in mind, okay? You don't have to believe me. I'm just here to perk your interest and get you to start thinking the next time you go out into the world, okay? So the next thing around energy harvesting is soul contracts. You're going to need to start thinking about this concept of soul contracts, okay? So let's think about it. Anything you purchase in society, isn't there like a paper record? Anything you do, even if I go to CVS and buy a pack of gum, they're going to give me a receipt, right? If I go buy a car, I'm going to have to sign a really large contract. If you start work, if you start a job, you have to sign a really large contract, right? As above, so below. What makes you think that you living on this planet, you don't have contracts running? If you literally have to get a piece of paper when you buy a pack of gum. Let's just think about that, okay? So you might not be able to see these contracts, but they're there somewhere. There's scripts that you are running in your head or in your subconscious. There are deals that you have made with different people in your life. Everybody is in your life for a very particular reason. You have some kind of karmic entanglements. And so looking at life from the perspective of having a soul contract with different people who come into your life and come into your world is going to really shift your perspective. And you'll start seeing even the people that have done you the most dirty in your life, you had a soul contract with them, and, a lot of people might say, oh, this is victim blaming, because I'm going to say, even sometimes when you're in a really abusive or narcissistic relationship with somebody, sometimes you have a soul contract for them to treat you that way. Okay. And that's why you notice how some people will tell you, man, I just feel like I keep meeting the same person. I keep dating the same person. They're like in a different body, but I keep finding these same people. Or if you're like a really codependent person, you might find people who are really codependent on you. Like you are kind of this strong type and people are like really needy who kind of latch onto you, and it just happens. It's because you have a soul contract for that to happen. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me actually read these comments. All right. So our lands, you pick up energy from all aspects. Yep. Michael Binns says Congress has been having a hearing on that too. UFOs. Yeah. They're becoming more open about the whole UFO thing. Yeah, it's not entertainment. It's real. Angie Steen says the new Star Trek Discovery season is introducing aliens altering humans. Yep. Or even like, what's the name of that movie? The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's a really good one too. The frequency is real. Yep. Protect your energy. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Yes. Clementine says the angels concept makes me think of my sorority. Ooh. You onto something there? That's a whole other life. Now we get into Masonic orders, the Greeks. Yeah, that's a whole other, I might even go there, but yes. Soul contracts, back to soul contracts. So that being said, if you are in dynamics in your life, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, and these are people you might really love, and you might really care for. And I'm not saying, just drop them and all that sort of stuff, but you might want to start getting underneath the hood of some of your relationships with them and see what soul contracts you have running with them. Okay. You can edit them, but you have to see beneath the surface. And you might be like, well, how do I do that? Okay. You need to start learning about your Akashic records. Well, a lot of people would say that that's not even real, because can I go to the library and find my Akashic records? No, you cannot. But there is something called your subconscious mind. And then there's something else that's called the collective unconscious. And the collective unconscious is just one big collective subconscious mind. And we're all running scripts through the collective unconscious. Once again, I can't prove this to you. I can't show you with my 5 senses that this is happening. And yet, let's just go back to the pack of gum analogy. Why is it that I literally need a receipt to buy a pack of gum, paperwork to buy a pack of gum, but there's no paperwork on my life? I don't know. That doesn't sound right. Like that, as above, so below. If there's paperwork to buy a pack of gum, if there's a record of me buying a silly pack of gum, there's a record on my life. Okay, and it's very long. It's like you got a lot of soul contracts going on. But that's why, you might, like, if you're in a really toxic work environment, you can quit that job. That's one thing you can do for a form of self-preservation. But what you'll probably find is you'll just end up in another toxic work environment, and then another one, and then another one. And then if you decide to start a business, you'll just have toxic clients sometimes, So do the stuff in the physical to make your life changes. But something that I would suggest is starting with revoking soul contracts and then make the physical life changes. Back when I had my spiritual awakening, I just wanted to get out of all, like, I just wanted to completely shift my life, but I didn't know about soul contracts. So I went through a really rocky experience because I was trying to break through a lot of barriers, even though I still had these soul contracts running. And so I found that the changes that I made in my life were a lot more difficult because I still had a soul contract running to engage in these dynamics. Since I've learned about soul contracts, what I've done is I've, if I ever want to make a change, I'll go into my Akashics first, and I'll see the soul contract that's running first. And you can look at this through tarot too. If you go on my TikTok, I have some videos on that. But yeah, so there's different ways to go into your Akashic records, but you'll be able to get a sense of the sort of soul contracts you have with a certain person. And I want to also pitch my Patreon as well, because I do a lot of content, a lot of meditations on Patreon to help you get into your Akashic records, because I know it's really difficult. When I first was trying to do it, it was really difficult. And there's a lot of blockages to your Akashic records. We've been programmed to not go into our Akashic records. And so what you'll notice is that when you start trying to go into your Akashic records, there's a lot of projections that are put in your face. There's a lot of inaccuracies. There's a lot of really big fuckery that goes on with your Akashic records. So you kind of have to shatter those mirrors and shatter those veils of illusion to really see what's what. And that takes time. And so for folks who are like ready to take that step, it's a bit more advanced. But if that's resonating with you, I do have a Patreon that has a load of videos to support you with guided meditations to support you with this, okay? Because I was saying this on, this was like a live I did on YouTube a few days ago, where I was talking about the importance of getting into your Akashic records. Yes, fuckery. It's really lawless, our Akashic records. And a lot of the controllers of the false matrix, they don't want us to be able to get into them to see what's what, because let me tell you, once you start seeing it, you're going to be like, what? I consented to that? Like, it's wild. It's like the Wild West out there. But one thing I was saying, the example I was giving people as it relates to why you should get into your own Akashic records as opposed to paying a practitioner to get into your Akashic records for you. It's the example of, okay, yeah, you need a tax accountant, or you need an accountant sometimes, or a financial advisor to manage your finances. But don't you want to at least be able to get into the program that they're running to see your own financial records, just to do a double check? Like, if you just give all blind trust to that financial advisor, you're giving a lot of trust. Like, would you do that with your money? Or would you want to check your accounts from time to time, like maybe once a month, just to see? It's the same concept, So a lot of folks might, you might start off by trying to get somebody to read your Akashic records. I'm a really big proponent of, here, learn how to get into your own Akashic records. You really need that, your soul contracts are in your Akashic records. To get out of a lot of energy harvesting patterns in your life, you got to get into your soul contracts. Start shifting the soul contracts, and then create new agreements. And you're going to see, when you make the changes in your physical plane, you're going to see it's a lot easier. Okay. That's what we want. We don't want all this drama and trauma. Like, we've had enough of that, So it's like, how do we extricate ourselves from the false matrix in the most peaceful way possible? I was super anarchist in the beginning, like, just burn it down. I don't care. And I had a lot of hard lessons related to that. And now being able to tap into the collective unconscious and my subconscious mind has just made it to be like smooth sailing. It's just, I can anticipate when a karmic issue is going to come up, and I can just easily break the soul contract and rewrite it and that sort of thing, or heal the karma related to that. And it's really easy to heal karma. You just need to have a heart of forgiveness and non-conditional love, but you need to know what you're healing, and so it's a huge tool that can help you navigate your life in a really peaceful way, And the last part of the mechanics of energy harvesting that I'm going to talk about today is something called destiny swapping. And I'm just going to touch on it. And it's a really controversial topic. I put some videos out on TikTok, and it was so funny because like this one girl, she did this whole dissertation on my like TikTok video where she was talking about how wrong I was and how like the Akashic records didn't exist, and she was like crying. I'm like, dang, if I'm so wrong, like why are you crying? Like it was really intense. But I'm going to repeat the mechanics of energy harvesting really quick, and then I'm going to go into a little bit about destiny swapping. Just know it needs its own conversation, so I'm just going to scratch the surface today. So the mechanics of energy harvesting. Number one, codependency. See in your life where you are the most codependent, where you think you can't live without it. You're going to find a script related to energy harvesting that's running, okay? And something about that relationship is keeping you out of your power, okay? That doesn't mean you have to drop the relationship entirely, but you may need to shift it to reclaim some of your power from it. Number two, energy harvesting is rooted in angles and electricity. We're moving into a more magnetic way of living, which is rooted in the spiral, which is rooted in cycles. It's rooted in the circle, like the circle of life. They never talk about the line of life, right? So energy harvesting, you're going to find the geometry of it is very sharp, pointy edges, okay? We're moving into more of a roundedness, a more collectivism, a more collective framework where many people can thrive, okay? And we can't do that in a box or in like pyramids, okay? So even though there's stuff out there that's saying that pyramids are super spiritual, or the Merkaba is super spiritual, like what is that more of an electrical spiritual, or is that more of like a magnetic spiritual? Just kind of think about that. And then on top of that, the mechanics of energy harvesting is rooted upon etheric implants. There's so many etheric implants. I'll go through it way more on the Patreon, as well as like ways to start taking out some of the initial etheric implants, as well as like what they all do. There's so many, but they can show up looking like pyramids. They can show up looking like boxes. They can show up looking like chains. They can show up looking like lots of different things. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I know like when you first learn about them, it's really scary and icky, but it's just better to know, and then you can start reclaiming your sovereignty from these patterns. Also, the mechanics of energy harvesting is rooted in, yes, reclaim your power. The mechanics of energy harvesting is rooted in soul contracts, okay? So sometimes the most difficult parts of your life are going to be ruled by soul contracts that on some plane you consented to. That doesn't mean that you have to keep consenting to them. And that doesn't mean that this soul contract that you consented to is within the law per se. That's a whole other conversation. But start learning how to go into your Akashic records and revoking soul contracts. And last, we're going to talk a little bit about destiny swapping. So when you start getting into your Akashic records, you're going to start sometimes you're going to start seeing that there are records that don't belong to you. There's karma that you might even be atoning for that doesn't belong to you. Okay. And I when I started opening up my Akashic records and I started seeing some things, I was like, damn, I did all this. Now that's not to say everybody has especially people who are of mixed bloodlines, like, so you might have different extraterrestrial lineages in your DNA and that kind of stuff. Like, people talk a lot about the reptilians and that sort of thing, but a lot of us have reptilian DNA. Like, so we all have to atone for certain things that may have happened within those lineages that aren't the nicest, because if the blood is in your DNA, then you are responsible for it. Because we're collective, even though we like to see ourselves as individuals. We are a part of a collective. But you're going to start, sometimes you might get the sense as you start tuning into your intuition that there's just some stuff that's not yours. And there's a lot of stuff coming out and being channeled now that a lot of the Earth's history has been, and a lot of the people who have risen to power on this planet have done so through false karma, putting their karma onto others. You ever hear of that thing around, like, why do bad things happen to good people? why does it feel like bad people never get caught, or they're just able to keep doing things? There's actually like a pretty simple reason for that. They defer their karma onto others. And it's as simple as like karma is just the law of cause and effect. If you cause something, you're going to feel the effects of that cause eventually. So what these folks have been doing is like they cause something like a nuclear war, for example, but they don't want to feel the effects of that nuclear war. So a lot of times they utilize soul contracts and etheric implants to support with pushing the karma onto other people, so they feel the effects. Now, will that always work? No, like every dog has its day, and yet, they've been doing it for quite a while, So as you start going into your Akashic records and, tapping in with your intuition, and you'll start to see more of this. And I'm going to give you a really great resource if you're curious about this and you want to learn more. You can go to a website called Aligning with Earth, which will share more information around false karma. Okay. And it's a curriculum. It's a free curriculum that's channeled through the consciousness of Earth and channeled through the consciousness of like the plant life of Earth and the animal life of Earth. It's channeled through something called holographic knowledge. So a lot of times, like as I'm speaking to y'all now, I'm using my voice, I'm using the English language, but that's not holographic knowledge. Holographic knowledge is nonverbal, okay? And so a lot of us have been so caught up in our humanity that we forget that there are other beings on the planet that know things and that have wisdom. And the way that they share their wisdom is through holographic knowledge. And so a lot of what this website does is it connects to, and holographic knowledge was back in the magnetic times of Lemuria and beyond, okay? So that's what we're going back to. But holographic knowledge is what's used to channel a lot of these things. Because if you think about it, Earth's been here forever, right? She's Earth. She's seen it all. So if you're going to get to the root of certain things that have been hidden, you should probably go to the source, no human's going to be able to tell you. So if you're interested in learning more about the whole false karma thing, karmic transference, there's a lot of stuff that can be found. It's a very comprehensive website and it's free. It's a very intense curriculum, and you could literally spend days going through the resources, and there's worksheets and all that kind of stuff. And it supports you with this transition that we're making into the magnetism of the great central sun, deprogramming a lot of our electrical angular thought forms and ways of knowing and being, which is rooted in codependency and cords of attachment and being in these really toxic webs and these toxic trauma loops. Moving into a magnetic way of living is going to require us to drop all of that. And this curriculum is going to support you with that. Okay. That is kind of where I'm going to end on the mechanics of energy harvesting. If you're interested in learning more about stuff related to this, consider joining the Patreon. And you can find that in the link in my bio, or you can consider joining me on YouTube, where I go more in depth with long form content related to these topics. All right, and sending y'all so much love, joy, peace, prosperity, and abundance until we meet again. Bye.